What's up, you freaking geniuses? So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to find x and y-intercepts of equations, all right? So let's start with an easier example, and then we're going to do a few that are a little bit harder. So when finding x and y-intercepts, you want to think of opposites, all right? So if you want to find x-intercepts, you want to set y equal to 0, all right? And if you want to find y-intercepts, you want to set x equal to 0. Okay, so let's start with finding the x-intercept of this equation. So again, in order to do that, we have to set y equal to 0, or just plug in a 0 for y. All right, so here we're going to get that 0 is equal to 5x minus 6. All right, now here we just need to solve for x to figure out where the x-intercept is. So the first thing we can do is get rid of this minus 6 by adding 6 to both sides. Those die. So here we're left with 6 is equal to 5x, and then to solve for x, we can get rid of this 5 by dividing by both sides by 5. Those die, and we're left with x is equal to 6/5. All right. Or if you wanted to convert this into a decimal, which would probably be preferable in this case, you can say also that x is equal to 1.2. Okay, so the x-intercept, or in other words, the place where this equation hits the x-axis is at 1.2, all right? Now, let's find the y-intercept, all right? Let's figure out where this equation hits the y-axis. So in order to do that, we want to set x equal to 0 this time. We're just plugging in a 0 for x, all right? So here we're going to get that y is equal to 5 times x, and again, we're going to plug in a 0 right there, and we have minus 6. So we get that y is equal to 0 minus 6. So we get that y is equal to -6, all right? So that means that this equation hits the y-axis at -6. All right, here's the next problem we're going to do. So we have y is equal to the square root of x plus 4. So again, if we want to find x-intercepts, you set y equal to 0. If you want to find y-intercepts, you set x equal to 0, all right? So here, in order to find the x-intercept, let's plug in a 0 for y. So we're going to have that 0 is equal to the square root of x plus 4. And remember, we're trying to solve for x, right? So the first thing we can do here is get rid of this radical, and we can do that by squaring it. And what we do to one side of an equation, we do to the other, right? So we have to square this whole side also. So here on the left side, 0 squared is still just equal to 0. And that's equal to this side now, which the square root and the squared exponent cancel out, and all we're left with is what's inside of the radical, which is x plus 4. So then here to solve for x, finally, we just subtract 4 from both sides. So we get that -4 is equal to x, all right? So this equation hits the x-axis at -4. All right, now in order to find the y-intercept, again, we just need to plug in a 0 for x. So here we're going to get that y is equal to the square root of 0 plus 4. So we get that y is equal to the square root of 4. So we get that y is equal to 2. All right, this one was a lot easier to solve, thank goodness. So that just means, again, that this equation hits the y-axis at +2. So here's the next one we're going to do. So we have y is equal to the absolute value of 3x minus 7. All right, so again, just start at the same place we've been starting. If you want to find the x-intercept, we're going to set y is equal to 0. And if we want to find the y-intercept, we want to set x equal to 0. All right, so first, let's find the x-intercept. So here we're going to say that 0 is equal to the absolute value of 3x minus 7. Now, in order to solve an absolute value equation, you need to split it up. So here we would say that the absolute value of 3x minus 7 is equal to +0, and the absolute value of 3x minus 7 is equal to -0. And then normally what we do from here is just solve each of these equations individually, right? So we'd basically have two answers, one for this equation and one for this equation. However, in this scenario, it's a little special, right? Because there's no such thing as positive or -0, right? 0 is just 0. So in this case, this specific case, we don't need to split it up, right? Since we have just 0 right here. Because positive or -0 doesn't change anything. It's still just 0. So since we just have this single equation, we can basically now drop these absolute value bars. So here we're going to end up with 0 is equal to 3x minus 7, all right? So again, we're just trying to solve for x here, so we can add 7 to both sides. So here we get that 3x is equal to 7, and then here we can divide both sides by 3. Those die, and we're left with x is equal to 7/3, all right? Or again, if you wanted to convert that into a decimal, x would be approximately 2.33. Okay, so this is where the equation hits the x-axis. Now let's find the y-intercept. So again, here we want to plug in a 0 for x. So here we're going to get that y is equal to the absolute value of 3 times 0 minus 7, and then we're going to close our absolute value bars. All right, so remember, in order to solve an absolute value equation, you need to split it up into 2 equations, right? So we're going to have the absolute value of all of this is equal to positive y, and we're going to have the absolute value of all of this is equal to negative y. All right, so here we're going to have that positive minus y is equal to the absolute value of 3 times 0, that's just equal to 0. And so here we get 0 minus 7, and 0 minus 7 is just negative 7, right? So we get plus or minus y is equal to the absolute value of negative 7, which is equal to just 7. So we have positive or negative, y is equal to 7. Okay, now, as you can see, we basically wind up with 2 answers. So we have positive y is equal to 7, and we also get negative y is equal to 7. So here, positive y is equal to 7, that's fine. That's basically the default symbol for our sign, right? It's kind of like this x over here. It's not explicitly shown, but you can basically assume that this is a positive x, right? And same thing right here, positive y, that's what we want. However, here we have specifically a negative y is equal to 7. So we can't just have a negative sign out in front of our variable like that for our answer. We need to get rid of that. So what we need to do here is divide both sides by negative 1. All right, so that kills the negative signs. So then here we're simply left with, I'll just write it above it, now it's positive y, is equal to 7 divided by 1, which is equal to negative 7, right? Negative 7. So we now have 2 answers, right? We have y is equal to positive 7 and y is equal to negative 7, okay? However, this answer is an extraneous solution, all right? It's not a real solution, and the reason for that is because when you take the absolute value of anything, it's positive, right? So we can't take the absolute value of something and have it pop out negative. That doesn't make sense. So that means this answer is not really an answer. The only real y-intercept that we have is this one right here. This y is equal to positive 7. All right, let's just do 2 last examples here. So here we have y squared is equal to 9 minus x. So again, in order to find the x-intercept, we're going to set y equal to 0. And to find the y-intercept, we're going to set x equal to 0. All right, so starting by finding the x-intercept, let's plug in a 0 for y. So here we're going to get 0 squared is equal to 9 minus x. So here we get that 0 is equal to 9 minus x, and then here we can subtract 9 from both sides, those cancel out. So we get negative 9 is equal to negative x, and here we can divide both sides by negative 1 to kill those. So here we get that 9 is equal to x. All right, so that's the x-intercept for this equation. Now let's find the y-intercept. And in this case, you would actually expect to find 2 y-intercepts. And the reason for that is because now there's a 2 on the y, right? So let's plug in a 0 for our x and solve for y. So we're going to get y squared is equal to 9 minus x. And again, we're going to plug in a 0 for x right there. So here we're going to get that y squared is equal to 9. So to solve for y, we need to take the square root of both sides. So then on this side, they cancel out. And we simply get that y is equal to plus or minus the square root of 9, which is 3. So here we get that y is equal to positive 3. And we get that y is equal to negative 3, all right? 2 intercepts. All right, here's the last one. So we have y is equal to x cubed minus 4x, all right? So again, let's start at the beginning. So to find x-intercepts, y is going to be equal to 0. To find y-intercepts, that means that x is going to be equal to 0. I'm losing my mind. All right, so then let's start here on the left. Now, in this case, you're going to expect to find 3 x-intercepts. And the reason for that is because there's a 3 on the x, okay? That's the biggest or highest degree exponent, right? So that's why we're going to expect to find 3. So let's plug in a 0, first of all, for y. So we're going to get 0 is equal to x cubed minus 4x. So here we can actually factor out an x from both terms, right? So here we can say that 0 is going to be equal to x times x squared minus 4. So here we're going to get that 0 is equal to x times, let's see, x squared minus 4, that's a difference of 2 squares. So that means we can break this down into x plus 2 and x minus 2. Okay, so as you can see, now we have 3 factors, right? We have x, x plus 2, and x minus 2. All right, so to find the intercepts, we just have to set each of these equal to 0, right? Because they're all equal to 0. So let's scroll down a little bit. So first of all, let's set x equal to 0. So that's going to be basically one solution. X is equal to 0. And then let's set the other factor, x plus 2 equal to 0. And then the last one, x minus 2 is equal to 0. All right. So solving for each one, well, there's nothing to solve on this first one. That's basically already a solution. We get x is equal to 0. For this one, to solve for x, we're going to get that x is equal to negative 2. And to solve for this one, we're going to get that x is equal to positive 2, all right? So those are our 3 x-intercepts. So this graph hits the x-axis at 0, negative 2, and positive 2, all right? Now here, let's now find the y-intercept, the last one. And we should only expect to find one intercept, right? Because there's no exponent on the y. So let's plug in a 0 for our x's right here. So we're going to get that y is equal to 0 cubed minus 4 times 0. So we get that y is equal to 0 cubed, that's just 0, minus 4 times 0, which is also 0. So we get that y is equal to a big old fat 0. So if you found the video helpful, make sure to leave a thumbs up down below. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments section below.